Hey comic book fans, welcome back to Comic Book Corner 2.0. And fans, you're back with me, Mike Spider Slayer, getting ready to do the countdown, episode number 141. Now, if you guys are not familiar with the countdown, this is where I take 10 of the books that I read for this week, and I count them down all the way from number 10 to number 1, and I give you my worst pick of the week, something that's beyond number 10. So with that being said, everybody, let's get started with this week's countdown. And the first one we're going to talk about is number 10. And number 10 goes to Ben Reilly, the Scarlet Spider. That's right, guys. This book, for me, is very much at its end. I am completely dropping the book. If you guys want to see a full recap and review on this particular issue, you can check it out. I've already reviewed the entire book. But basically what happens is that Ben winds up running into death. You get a recap of why he needs to, change his soul and become a good guy again. And we get to see this plot that goes in circles where he continues to try to save this girl. Now we wind up finding out that the person that he's working for is, her name is Mercury, Cassandra Mercury. She winds up being kidnapped. And now he has to save her. But there's no real plot. There's no real depth to this book. It's very boring. If you care about these Slinger characters, like Ricochet and Hornet, then this might appeal to you. But this is a very weak book, and I feel that it's very disappointing. This book had so much potential. People had a lot of high hopes for it, and there's a lot of people that are disappointed with it. So at this point going forward, I will not be picking up the Scarlet Spider, so I'm dropping it. All right, so the next book we're going to talk about, number 9, is Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps. I gave Robert Venditti so much credit for turning this book around when, it came off of Rebirth. It felt like more of a Green Lantern Corps book. It felt like the team was connecting again. And now we're going back to this crazy space adventures. They don't seem like they're grounded. The team doesn't feel as in sync as it once was. And now we find that our Green Lantern Corps members are going against these characters by the name of the Controllers. And so what happens in this issue is you find out that the Guardians are captured by these Controllers, and our Green Lantern Corps member are actually trying to find the Guardians. And that's basically a lot of this issue. You see them searching for these Controllers, and that's about it. You had a pretty good moment in here with Kyle Reiner, with him in this young Green Lantern, about him, how he could, draw things, and it kind of stayed true to the character that we knew with Kyle. So that was a good moment in there, but these Controllers just seem like pointless villains to me, so I wasn't really into this book whatsoever. The only thing that was cool about it is really at the end when the Controller sucked the soul out of a Guardian and they became a Controller themselves. And at the end of the book, you wind up seeing this one picture in here where it looked like a scene from The Fly, where you see what's his name, Goldblum, come out of the capsule, and as he transported, it kind of reminded me of that scene. Look at that. That's kind of funny. But yeah, I didn't get anything out of this really. These villains just seem very pointless to me. Of course, I'm going to continue to read this. I'm a huge Green Lantern fan, but this is just not appealing to me right now. So, take it or leave it. If you're a hardcore Green Lantern fan, I say continue to pick it up, but if you're not, you might want to skip this story arc. All right, so number 8. And number 8 goes to XMen Blue, issue number 17. This is where the XMen Blue characters are trying to go back to their time, and I got misplaced in time again, so now they're in the year 2099, and you run into the X-Men team of 2099. Now, if you don't know who the 2099 X-Men are, right, you still won't know who they are because they don't do a really good job at character development. This book is full of action. There's too much going on. You don't get a chance to really learn the characters in this book. And you find it very frustrating as a reader. You're like, oh, I want to get to know these characters. Maybe they should be in an issue or two. And, you know, so you get to know them and you care about them. But you don't get a chance to care about them. Right away, your main X-Men characters in this book are shipped off to another timeline. And they wind up going to face off Generation X. And, you know, this book is just one thing after the other. It's like, oh, we got to do this in Mojo World, and then we have these characters in this book, and then we have these characters in the next book. And Colin Bunn is so, you know, excited, it seems like, to show off all these cool characters. But the story suffers from character development, and that's what I get out of this. And it's just not so appealing to me. When this book actually takes a minute to slow down and dive into some really good character moments, that's when this book shines. They're far and few between, but when they do happen, they're really, really good. So hopefully X-Men Blue in the future dives on some more character moments that as a reader of the X-Men, you can appreciate that. So I'll continue with this book, but it wasn't high on my list. I actually preferred the Mojo World stuff over this particular stuff. All right, next we go on to number 7. And number 7 this week goes to She-Hulk, issue number 160. So you find out in this issue that She-Hulk, or I'm sorry, the leader is a very manipulative character. He persuades this chick by a professor, and I think her first name is Amy, joining him, and how it seems like she had issues in her life and how she was abused, and she's a big fan of Jennifer Walters as a Hulk, and she wants to be a Hulk herself. And, you know, it's kind of cool. She's a creepy looking character. And by the time you wind up getting to the end of this book, she winds up changing into a Hulk herself. And she's just really odd and weird looking. And I'm just like, yeah. And this is the way she looks when she changed into the Hulk. So part of what makes She-Hulk appealing to me is what Jennifer Walters is going through. You know, being that she's this gray, uncontrollable Hulk, which is kind of cool. And then I always like to see how creative, you know, the writers can get when it comes to making new Hulks or creatures that another Hulk fights. And I just felt like the character, the scientist, was kind of cool. I like her story, seemed very interesting. But her actual, like, monster was, like, weak the way she looked. And I think that the artwork suffers a little bit from this book. I would like a little bit more detail from it. And, you know, we'll see what happens. And really, the leader is just playing games. He just wants Jennifer Walters dead just for the sport of it. Just for the hell of it. No real reason. He's like, it's time for you to die. So you're going to face the monster. That's basically what you've become, you know. So it's just kind of weird. It's an okay story. It wasn't the greatest story, but I'm going to continue it as well. As you can see, at this point, I'm not really impressed with that many books. They're just like, they're okay. All right, so now we go on to number 6. And number 6 goes to Weapon X. This is issue number 12. Now, this is the first story arc that dives away from Weapon H and the weapons of mutant destruction. And so I wanted to see what this book had to offer. This time, Greg Pak dives into the whole situation with Nuke. And we wind up finding out that there's a Nuke platoon. You know, the dude that wears the flag. And we find out that they're anti-mutants. They don't want to, you know, they obviously hate the mutants, or they're going to kill all these mutants. And we wind up finding out that they do, like, these steroids. They take these, like, red pills, and it makes them full of rage, and they kill everybody, and they're doing battle against the mutants, and, you know, against, like, Wolverine, and obviously Sabretooth, and everybody else, and it was kind of crazy. There's some good character moments in here, you know, where you have, what's it called, Domino, where she's like, come on, guys, let's rob a bank. You guys want to rob a bank? Come on, let's do something fun, you know. There were some cool moments in here. And we wound up finding out that when, you know, the good guys try to save the day and find out what's going on, we wind up finding out that Nuke it looks like he was imprisoned as well, and he's not necessarily the bad guy here. He's just like, give me one of those red pills. And it looks like him and Sabretooth are going to actually team up here. So it makes quite interesting story on like why is Nuke not part of the Nuke platoon, and what did he do to be on the bad side of things and be a potential good guy. So that might be quite interesting. So this one was pretty good. I say continue to pick this one up. All right. So the next one it goes to, we're on number 5, and number 5 goes to Jean Grey, issue number 10. Jean Grey was a pretty good book as they try to elude the Phoenix, as the Phoenix Force has made its arrival. And we get to see the ghost of Jean wind up talking to young Jean Grey and saying, you got to battle this creature. You can't involve everybody in it. You know, it's you at the end that's going to call the shots and have to deal with everything. And, you know, it was kind of cool seeing them, you know, hide from the Phoenix. And then we wind up seeing Jean Grey stand up to it. And she's like, you know what? She's right. I do have to step up. And I really do have to, you know, fight the Phoenix. And you get to see her use her psychic ability on actually trying to stop the Phoenix. The artwork was gorgeous here. The Phoenix itself, the entity itself looked really nice. But by the time you wind up getting to the end of this book, it doesn't look like she survives the experience. You wind up seeing her wind up getting consumed by the Phoenix, and it winds up taking over her, and it winds up looking like it shatters her to pieces. The artwork is absolutely, like I said, gorgeous again. I love the paneling in it and everything. It takes out everybody. It takes out Emma, takes out the sisters, and just Ghost Jean is left there. Just wondering, like, what the hell happened. And it continues in Red Phoenix Resurrection, issue number 1 through 5. So we'll see what happens with this. So it took a long time for Dennis Hopeless to tell this story. So now we're finally here. So we'll see where this goes. So if you're interested in the whole Phoenix thing, I say definitely pick this book up. All right. So next is number 4. Number 4 goes to All New Wolverine, issue number 28. This book was really cool. And out of everything that happens here, there's one panel here where we wind up seeing Gabby actually getting her own name. And if you just take her out the rest of the story, this is why this book gets the number 4 spot for me. Her new name, pronounced by Dawkins, is called Honey Badger. And she winds up going, oh, that's perfect. And it shows all these classic Hulk type, or Hulk Wolverine type of, you know, comic covers with her doing battle and everything. And it was just like, she loved it. And it was so good. But you see basically Laura and everybody doing battle against these, what the heck are they called? I totally forgot. Orphans of X. You wind up seeing them doing battle. They wind up trying to escape. There's this actual sword that cuts through the mutants. Now that prevents them from healing, you know, getting their healing factor in. But most of the issue, you wind up seeing them running away. And, you know, and you wind up finding out the powers of this sword. You wind up seeing Dawkins healing and whatnot. And it was an okay issue. It wasn't like the greatest issue, but it was fun. It was a fun read. There was some good character moments. You wind up seeing Laura. You wind up seeing some of the other, you know, Wolverine and Sabretooth, like Old Man Logan. They wind up being captured. They wind up getting shot at the end, and you're kind of like, holy shit! Like, how are they gonna survive? So it was kind of cool. It was a good issue. It wasn't like the strongest issue that I've ever read from All New Wolverine, but you know, there's those keen character moments that really make you laugh out there, and I had a blast with it. So All New Wolverine, definitely continue to pick it up if you are reading it. All right, next we're going on to number 3. Number 3 was Action Comics issue 993. This book was pretty cool, had Booster Gold in it. We find out that Superman winds up going back in time as he uses Flash's, what's it called, treadmill, cosmic treadmill, to go back in time and to go find out who his father was, or how he could see his father, you know, maybe possibly escaped Krypton before it blew up. He wants answers. That's basically what Superman wants. And when he goes back in time, he winds up going through this type of wormhole or something like that, and wind up screwing things up. And we wind up seeing Krypton perfectly fine. It's not blowing up. And little did you find out, when Superman is doing his exploring, he winds up seeing Jor-El and Zod teaming up. And by the time you get to the end of this issue, Booster Gold meets up with him, and he says, dude, we gotta get out of here before you get spotted. You can mess everything up. And he winds up getting spotted, and that's basically how the issue ends. The artwork is really good in this. Booster Gold is pretty cool in this. And I had a lot of fun with this book. I thought that the Lois moments and the John moments were almost unnecessary at this point. But it was alright. And but I like the book overall. I can't wait to see what happens in the next issue with Jor-El and Zod working together. And if they do screw up something with the timeline now that they were spotted here. So we'll see what happens. Maybe Jor-El actually, when Krypton explodes now, maybe he actually just dies and he doesn't get transported by Manhattan. So I don't know. We'll see. Or everything might just go back the same. We'll see what happens. All right. Number 2. And number 2 goes to The Amazing Spider-Man issue number 792. The Venom Inc. issue. I had a lot of fun with this book. Much better than the first issue. I love seeing Flash being Agent Venom again. I don't think maybe they had to make him anti-Venom, but I like seeing him that way because I think fans liked Flash as Agent Venom, not the Galactic Venom or Cosmic Venom or whatever it was. And I love some good character interactions in there between Flash and Peter on what to do with the current leftover symbiote that Eddie Brock had. Eddie Brock has somewhat of more of a vendetta once again to go after Spider-Man since he kind of left him behind. And we get to see Lee Price be this leader of Venom symbiotes. And he gets to produce spawns as anytime he wants, basically as will. And so they follow his lead and they take over Black Cat's gang. And they become all symbiotes as well, including Scorpion and Black Cat herself, which makes for an interesting book. The one gripe I had about this book, I remember I mentioned how how Flash Thompson actually interacts with the other symbiote that's still alive, the black portion. He like treats it like a dog and pets it and stuff. I wasn't like a real fond of that. But the overall book was a lot of fun. Stegman's artwork works for the book. And I thought it was quite interesting. Now we get to see how Peter and Flash, do battle against this Venom symbiote gang led by Lee Price, who is now called Maniac. So we'll see what happens there. So if you're a fan of Spider-Man and Venom, I think this is a good story. It's a good crossing over story for these two books, and it works for me. So definitely pick it up. But definitely had its flaws. It's like a 4-star book, and that was my number 2. Number 1 book, the best book by far of the week for me. This is Daredevil issue number 596. This is titled Mayor Fisk. Mayor Fisk. Wilson Fisk becomes the mayor of New York. We wind up finding out that Daredevil is not a fan. He, as an attorney, wants to try to prosecute Mr. Fisk or Mayor Fisk at this point, but he's in a losing battle. And so he goes and, last issue he tried to think that he was being, stopping some muggers or whatnot. Wound up being undercover police. He winds up getting arrested. He winds up having words with Mayor Fisk. He winds up breaking his window and escaping and says, "This is not the last that you're going to hear with me." So, of course, Kingpin himself, he's going to, kind of say, "Hey, I was assaulted. Arrest this man." Being that he has the police force under his wing, he can do it legally. So that's what happens in this issue. You wind up seeing the police force come together to try to stop Daredevil in this issue. And they all can't believe that he turned bad guy, that he assaulted the mayor, even though it was Fisk. You think that he would eventually get on board with this and follow the rules. And it was cool seeing those things come into play, how the police interacted and how they couldn't believe, you know, he turned bad and things like that. And so it was cool to see Matt Murdock actually escape this police, and he used a decoy to escape. He actually used Blind Spot to play in for him as Daredevil while he escaped underground. So by the time you wind up getting to the end of this issue, you know, you wind up seeing Kingpin contact Matt Murdock, and he says, you know, I won the vote, but people don't agree with me. People are not on the same side as me. But people really appreciate you, Matt Murdock. And Matt was like, well, what are you talking about? He's like, why are you calling me? He's like, just hear me out. He's like, I want people to have trust. And I want you to be deputy mayor. So that means that if something was to ever happen to Kingpin, Matt Murdock would be next to be in line of mayor. And so that's perfect. You have the criminal, Kingpin and Daredevil, go odd and odd against each other. But then you have Mayor, Fisk, and Matt Murdock going to work together with each other. But this is the way that Matt Murdock can work his way in and take out Fisk. Brilliant. He accepts the job. Brilliant. I cannot wait to see how this actual issue or series turns out and how he can try to overthrow Mayor Kingpin. This is really good book. Artwork is dark and gritty, fits the style of book. I definitely suggest you go out and buy this book, guys. This is by far the strongest book this week. Easily in my opinion. This is like a 4 3/4 stars book. I would like a little bit more detail in the artwork, but story-wise, out of the park, man. Great story. All right, so there was your top 10. That was your number 1 book. Now, here's my worst book. If you didn't think that Scarlet Spider could get any, worse this week, there was a book that was worse. And I tried out the first issue, and this is The Punisher, issue number 219. We wound up seeing this big exploration of why, the Punisher has to go get the armor and blah, blah, blah. And he winds up getting the armor and he flies away. And let me just say, when you look at this book right here, this page right here, okay, you're like, man, that artwork looks freaking badass. Nope. Artwork is not like that at all. This is the way the Punisher looks in here. And you're like, yep, that sucks. Horrible. It is not a good book whatsoever. I am not a fan of it. And in this issue, he winds up going to some guy's farm, and he has to defend the farm because the soldiers are going to come back, and they're going to destroy his farm. And I'm like, this is dumb. This is boring. There's no real plot. And he just got this armor. He just got it. And so when does it have like the Punisher logo on it? I thought he was wearing partial of the armor, and it's his shirt that's underneath it. But as you progress through the issue, and he's done chopping people's heads off, you wind up getting to see his armor sit there, and it has a skeleton on it, right? It's like, when did he have time to do that and change that? And it's got eyes and everything. I'm like, this is dumb. This is pointless. He looks like a Frankenstein. I don't like the book whatsoever. I thought I'd try it out. I thought it would be cool having Frank Castle as in the, War Machine armor and him being like the next War Machine. And it doesn't even come close to that. It's poor in my opinion. So I don't like it. I'm not picking that book up anymore. So I'll probably replace Scarlet Spider with something else and the Punisher with something else and see what else I can pick up. So guys, there you have it. There is the countdown for the week. This was episode 141. Now it's your turn in the comments below to tell me what your top book of the week was, what your worst book of the week was, and all that stuff in between. And fans, as always, thank you for watching Comic Book Corner 2.0. And until that next comic book review, this is Mike Spider Slayer signing off, and I'll see you guys real soon. Take care. Bye.